My name is Ben Stevenson,
And I'm Lauren Stevenson.
and this is our story.
We had been married for just over a year, and remember one night we were laying in bed and I told Ben that I felt like we were really distant from each other, and he ended up telling me that yes, he felt the same way and that he wasn't even sure if he loved me anymore.
About a year into our marriage, I really started to develop resentment and indifference towards Lauren. At that time, I reached out to a prior relationship via Facebook and started talking to her again, speaking very negatively about Lauren, and found myself in the beginnings of an emotional affair. At that time, I told Lauren that I wanted a divorce. I really started believing that it was all her fault, that this wasn't my fault that our marriage was crumbling, it was her fault.
I tried everything I could to fight for our marriage, and just, it was a lot of arguments because I didn't understand where all of this was coming from. The more I fought, though, for our marriage, the meaner he became, and eventually it became emotional and verbal abuse. Things had gotten so bad that I actually moved out while still trying to fight for our marriage, but it was something I had to do just to protect myself. And eventually, though, I decided to move back to Texas when he actually filed for divorce. At that point, I felt like that's it. There's nothing else that I can do or say. At that point, I really doubted that there was anything that God could do either.
So after the divorce was final, I actually started going on dates with this woman, prior relationship, and it didn't last very long. I ended things as soon as I found out she was cheating on me. And then after that, I started realizing that I didn't have anyone in my life anymore. I started seeing that I didn't have friends around me anymore. They all kind of just left me. At that point in time, I actually finally did have my encounter with God. It was a day like any other day. I was driving to work. I had my iPod on shuffle, and just the first song that came up was the song from our wedding that we danced to. And I skipped that. That wasn't something I wanted to hear. And the song right after that was a song by Casting Crowns, and no, I didn't want to hear that either. And then the song after that was a song that had always reminded me of Lauren, by Lady Antebellum. I had started crying and I pulled off on the side of the road, kind of to collect myself and try to find some napkins. And while digging around for napkins, I actually found my old wedding ring, which I thought I had lost because I had purchased a new vehicle. I collected myself and got to work. A couple hours later, a coworker and I had traded cubes, and she came back and asked what this picture was in the drawer, and it was a picture of Lauren and I that I didn't realize had fallen in the very back. At this point in time, I just decided to call it a day and go home. It was just too much. I couldn't focus on anything. And as soon as I had gotten back home, my dog Daisy was staring at a picture of Lauren that I had pulled out of the closet to get to my camping gear. And at that point in time, I lost it, and I realized that God was trying to get my attention. And so that evening I just took some time and I went up to a spot up in the mountains above the city, and I really just kind of had the struggle with God there that, I realized He was trying to get my attention, and I realized that He was there and He hadn't given up on me. Later that night I called the youth director from the church that Lauren and I went to, and with him on the phone, I gave my life to Christ that night. A few weeks had gone by, and I decided that I was going to call Lauren. I really felt that God was telling me that I needed to call her, and I needed to try to reconcile our marriage. There was a lot of apologizing. There was a lot of going through emotions that were felt during the divorce.
And we talked on the phone a couple of times a week, and our whole reconciliation process was long distance for the first year. And then at that point, counseling is really what kind of carried us the rest of the way. We went to counseling for a total of, I think, 5 months before we actually made the decision to get remarried. I feel like the main difference, though, is that we put God first in our marriage. We are coming up on our 7-year anniversary. We know how to communicate now. We still use a lot of the strategies and skills that our counselor taught us when we were going to counseling together. We could not have done it without God's hand in the whole entire process. It's just truly a miracle that God did in our lives.
I think during this process, there was a song that we listened to by Gungor called Beautiful Things. And one of the lines in that song is, "You make beautiful things out of the dust." And our marriage came back from the dust.